Hello, everyone. Thanks for checking out this special episode of Really Dicey. This is Manny, and I am here with.
Hey, I'm Justin Achille. I'm Chief Creative Officer here at Studio Hermitage, and I'm here with the Senior Writer Designer,
Rachel J. Wilkinson. Hi, hello.
Well, today we're going to talk about our brilliant ruin. It's right now on Kickstarter, and congratulations! It made its goal. So let's start at the beginning. What exactly is our brilliant ruin?
Rachel. Why don't you grab that and start with your slug line, since we went with yours on it.
You expect me to remember the slug line? Okay. It is a oh gosh. Explore a gilded age where upstairs downstairs drama meets existential horror.
Perfect. Yeah, we wanted to ride really hard into that. It's inspired by things like Downton Abbey, by Brideshead Revisited, and there are a lot of we really like that Edwardian aesthetic. So we borrowed a lot of that. It is a completely fictional world, so it's not alt history. It's happening in its own environment, and that also gives us an opportunity to bring in the monsters, the existential horror, the end of the world. That's kind of implying urgency on all of it.
Now, is this its own IP? Is this from a series of novels or shows?
It is brand new. We are just starting out from square one. We do have intentions to do a comic book as well. We're working with Dark Horse Comics to do a series of comics there. Rachel is working on an audio drama as well she is currently working on the scripts for. She can talk more about that. But of course, our first product is the TTRPG that you just mentioned, is on Kickstarter right now. And secretly in the back, we're working on a video game as well.
Wow. So I have to ask. So, both of you are very talented. What made you decide to create this project? You could have done like robots in the future or prehistoric era. You could pick any topic. Why this one?
Well,
Rachel, what about it
Justin.
speaks
that
to
is
you?
all Justin.
Oh, I was going to turn it over to you first.
Well, no,
Okay.
I mean, Justin originally came up with the idea. So why don't you talk first and then I'll come in after you.
Okay. I've been wanting to do this for years. I've wanted to. I'm a big fan of TV shows set in the era. I love that kind of BritBox style of show. And my background in World of Darkness also. I love the sociological style of gameplay when there are groups that are at odds with other groups and they have expectations of their members. And so one of the cool things is, like, for players, once you choose one of the groups, you automatically get a kind of community that builds you into it. And so for me, it was kind of this melting pot of the Edwardian aesthetic, of the same kind of high drama that the World of Darkness games create, and the sort of end of the world stuff that I think provides a wonderful tension that sort of pushes all those different groups into conflict with one another. But for me, the thing that takes it home really is those aesthetics. As someone who is not artistic at all, I love kind of setting up the world state and then saying to the art director, "Hey, Andy, can you take this and run with it?" and seeing what he comes up with there.
I started my first day and Justin and I met and Justin said, I have an idea for a thing. I want to do Edwardian, Belle Epoque. I want to have these cool, this faction conflict, this sociological drama, but I don't want laws, religion, churches, borders, countries, didn't want any of these things. And I was sitting here kind of baffled for a moment going, well, what are we going to talk about then? We eventually landed on land and money and class. We could do that. But it was an immediate challenge when I started, when it's like, hey, we're going to do this thing, but we're not going to have anything that would normally be what stories would build conflict on.
So let's talk a little bit about the setting exactly, like what's happening here. So is this in Europe specifically? Is it what can you tell us exactly where will players have their adventures take place in?
It's its own fictional world, and it's called the Dramar. And the Dramar is literally all that's left anymore. There are no, as Rachel says, there's no countries, there's no boundaries like that anymore. There's no law, and so we're kind of left with, there was a previous kind of society and structure, and all of that has fallen apart because the ruin is literally eating away at the world itself. It's eating away at people. It's eating away at kind of indirectly societal mores. It's eating away at stuff stuff like literally metal. Anything in the world has a very high likelihood of being corroded. And so in this fictional world, the Dramark is just everything that's left. Like literally, once you go out into the seas, there may not be anything on the other side anymore. So kind of macro, that's the framing there. Once you start to zero in on your locality, everyone is trying to kind of hold on to a sense of normalcy. They're wanting to preserve anything that they've got left that makes them feel safe, feel comfortable. And so we have these outdated and unjust kind of social structures. At the end of the world, why would you bother exalting aristocrats? But the true folk do kind of trust the aristocrats. Eventually they'll pull through for us and everything will be okay. And in the short term, the aristocrats have all of the money. They have these fine estates. So there's a degree of comfort that people who are, riding into the end of the world, they just want to be comfortable or fight back what little way they can. And then there's that third group, the unbonded, which is the third part of the triangle of social conflict there. And the unbonded are literally saying, the world is ending. Why are you people throwing parties? Why are you going to work every day? We need to change things. And we don't know necessarily what the unbonded want to change things to. We don't necessarily know that they want to make something better. We just know that they're agents of change. And then, of course, acting on all of this is that ruin, is this force that's corroding the world away. It's turning people into monsters. It's eroding metal. It's eating away at the houses. It's eating away at the geography itself. And so the world itself is shrinking, shrinking, shrinking. And the people who are in it are having to find what little bit they can cling to make them want to see the next day.
So this sounds like a mix of Mask of Red Death or Neverending Story meets Lovecraft. Something about like fighting the end of the world is very exciting. So what can players be in a world that's falling apart?
Not heroes.
No, that's true. That's a great point.
Yeah, I mean so what was exciting about the IP for me is that we were actually going to tell stories about people. It wasn't about superheroes. It wasn't about saving the world. It wasn't about preventing the ruin. Like this world is going to end. There is no stopping it. And so the question becomes, how do the characters, well, what choices do they make? How do they use their time? What is the thing that's going to be important to them, knowing that they are like, this might be the last time that they have to see somebody, to know somebody, to do something. And I think it builds an interesting tension in that it sort of zeroes in to say, what does this character really want to accomplish? What legacy are you going to leave in this, in something that might be erased? It's just, I don't know. It was just interesting.
Oh, that's really fascinating. So it's not your typical the apocalypse is coming. Let's save the world. It's like, oh, wait, the world's ending. Let's party. Is that
Yes. Well, and that's exactly what the aristocrats are doing. The aristocrats are la 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 la. This is not really happening. We're gonna throw parties. I don't know what to do with myself, so let's just sort of exist. The true folk have their head buried in the sand a little bit because they're like, well, I'll just do my job. I'll just go to work. I'll just keep the trains running on time, and maybe something will shake out. And the unbonded are just like, no, guys.
we've got to do something.
This is not what's happening. So you have these ideas of how are you going to actually spend that time. So yeah, it's just it creates a different focal point for like I was talking about conflict earlier. When you get rid of all of this stuff, my first instinct was a seizure. Like it was, what are we going to talk about if we can't talk about all these things that we've been talking about forever? And so now we had to kind of, I don't know, change the camera, change the point of view, and make it about that existential dread. I mean, it's really sort of like a regular person, quote unquote regular, facing their own demise.
How do the rules work for this exactly?
Yeah, it's a dice pool system. So if you're familiar with Shadowrun or familiar with World of Darkness, you know how that works. And you build a dice pool based on a number of traits. Typically, your personality. So we care less about how strong or dexterous or hale and hardy you are. Instead, we care that you are acting with love or acting out of benevolence or acting selfishly. So your personality trait drives half of the dice pool. The other half of the dice pool is a very broadly interpreted set of skills. And so you choose which one of the skills is most applicable there. And the player then proposes to the GM, I want to use X plus Y to do this. If I am selfishly observing, I might propose audacity plus observe as a dice pool. But if you are someone who is very clever, you might choose to use ingenuity and intuit as your dice pool. And we're both finding out the same thing this way. So a lot of this is driven by kind of the player's approach to telling the story, and the GM, a good back and forth there. Yeah, that's a good way to do that, or no, you can't fight your way to finding out the answer there. And the number of dice you have in your personality plus your skill equals your dice pool, and you roll that many six-siders. Sixes are brills, and you want as many brills as possible. Ones are glooms, and if you have more glooms than brills, it's a catastrophe. But if you have more brills than gloom, or if you have more brills, period, it's a success, and you gain the benefits of something there. And so that makes for a very almost 50-50 outcome there. We're really interested in failures too. We're really interested in, oh, I really tried to do this, but I didn't happen. This subterfuge I was trying to run, oh, I got exposed in it. So being successful is just as interesting as failure. But of course, players want to succeed. So there's a system called passions that you can use as well. And when you invoke passion, you double your success range for brills. 5s and 6s count as brills, and it gives you +2 dice. And so, there are a lot of different permutations of that. The more you use passion, the more trouble it eventually creates. But that's the base system. And then there are different ways to augment it as well. Things like portfolio, your external assets, your wealth, your wardrobe, the people you know. These you just kind of tick off, and they automatically succeed as you use them. So you have aristocrats who have tons of portfolio, and you have the true folk who are really eminently skilled and in fact cannot fail at their basic skill, something they're known for. You might be a repairman, and every time you repair something, it succeeds. So we're kind of setting up the social conflicts there too, where the true folk who don't have all the money and have to work for a living are really good at their jobs, but the aristocrats who have all the money and all the estates, they don't really have to do anything. They're not particularly good at anything. So they just kind of throw money at their problems, or they throw resources at their problems there. And then, of course, there's the unbonded as well, who, because they're often forced to the edges of society or community, they're really durable. They're really hardy. They're very strong and healthy. And they're also good at kind of protecting themselves and their environments from the ruin there. So everybody has a benefit to why you might want to choose them as a faction there. It just depends on what you want to accomplish in the game.
That's pretty fascinating. It seems like the rule system goes really well with the type of gameplay you want in Our Brilliant Ruin. If I may ask, before I ask you about Game Master tools, did the idea for this come first, then the rule set? Was it like sort of work together? If I may ask, if I may peek behind the curtain, how did that?
Oh, it was world first, and then deciding what we wanted, and part of creating that your effectively your base stats being your personality are because we wanted to get away from the idea that there were these special abilities. Nobody has special abilities. It is really what you have access to, what your skill is, your knowledge, your practical knowledge as far as dealing with ruin. And so when you're talking about that idea of a personality, we were more interested in why you did something rather than what it was, and what in the psyche of the character sort of motivated them. And also passions, as Justin explained, are, well, because we just want a drama. We want people to, like, what do you really care about? Do you really want to succeed at this thing? Then you better rely on your passions. And really just getting into the idea of people wanting things, wanting to do things for Well, not necessarily for themselves, not selfishly for themselves, but being motivated by their own desires.
Hmm. Well, I find this fascinating because it feels like, yeah, there's adventures in this, but it's like it's also very story driven. You know,
Well, yeah.
it's not because usually when you think of adventure, you think of the heroes and then magic items and then finding the big bad. But no, this is almost like this is an HBO series or something similar.
That's the best compliment you can give me, by the way.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
love it, love it.
Well, let's talk about game master tools. Now, there may be some that maybe are interested in the end of the world aspect, but maybe not too familiar with Edwardian history or vice versa. What does this book offer?
Yeah, that's actually one of the benefits is you don't have to know about Edwardian history at all because it is a completely fictional world. What you say goes. In fact, we show bits and pieces of the Dramar, but there is no kind of overarching official way that you must handle the Dramar. The way we look at it is we're building a terrarium, and then players take it and tell their own stories in it. Speaking specifically from a GM perspective, one of the things that we wanted to do was unburden the GM from having to do a lot of the bookkeeping and keeping track of things, and instead focus them more on being able to realize the drama that the players are going to create. So, for example, GMs don't have to roll dice at all ever. They don't, they've each one of the antagonists, behaves a certain way or has specific outcomes, and so you don't roll dice for them. Instead, this rating 5 NPC does 5 damage, if they attack you, or this, rating 2 estate, because we're very focused on the estates themselves, has these benefits available to them, and so it's very kind of not predetermined for the GMs, but they are operating within kind of a controlled set of environment, and so they're already kind of focused on creating cause and effect for the story that then the players are going to go awry with, and so we want to make that as easy as possible. It's almost like I don't want to say like a board game, but something like Kingdom Death or even Robo Rally, where NPCs take this particular route, but this NPC special ability or advantage does this thing, as opposed to roll 3 dice, and you missed, so your big bad character who was supposed to seem tough and
I
overwhelming
was about to
rolled a
say that,
1 and fell
yeah.
down a flight of stairs or something.
You
So
create
instead,
this
you get to
totally, this scary, horrible chimera monster, and he whiffs, right? And the whole table's like, wah, wah. And so we just wanted, like, if a chimera attacks you, it's gonna hit. It's just your ability as a character to dodge it, to soak it, to throw somebody else in the way of it is to avoid the damage.
Hmm. The art for this looks phenomenal. Definitely eye catching. Can you tell us about the art direction for this book?
Yeah, you bet. The art itself, much of it is done by our in-house senior concept artist, Ephraim Palacios. He's worked on stuff in the past from Lord of the Rings to he's worked for Activision Blizzard. And so like all of the visual look that so much of it is driven by his style there. And it's art directed by Andy Foltz. And Andy and I had worked together back in the day at Red Storm, and we worked together at or he worked separately on Apple TV Plus's Epic Quest or Mythic Quest show. So he has experience in working with a couple of different mediums here, and that's pretty valuable because again, we're wanting to work in a variety of ways, right? We're wanting to work in the TTRPG and in comic books and in this variety of ways there. And so everything we're using, we want to be visually memorable there and take us forward into those other mediums as well.
I actually really enjoy Ephraim's art. He really did set the style. Like, there's no question about that. A lot of the Art Nouveau inspiration comes straight from Andy. Andy built the logo and all of that. I don't know if you would call it filigree. Like, I am not an art person. I don't know, but but it's that is a lot of Andy's involvement. But I know, like, Ephraim, Lady Catherine is a great example. You will learn about Lady Catherine Valgrieve as you get involved in the story, and Ephraim created this character And he said, "This is Lady Catherine, and this is, this is what she is." It's basically dictating what I was going to write for a character. And I was like, "Okay, Ephraim," So there was a porous membrane between writing and art, taking characters that I had written, and Ephraim would bring them to life, and then, or vice versa, Ephraim would say, "Hey, I like this character. I don't know who this is," and then I would infuse the personality. So definitely a cooperative experience.
And I love that as part of working on a small team is everyone gets to kind of get their hands creatively dirty every day as we're working on it. And as we focus more on production, that zeroes in a little bit. And once we're writing the TTRPG, there's a lot less of that wild input. But early on, as we're concepting, the artists are contributing ideas, and the writers are writing to the artists' ideas. And Paxton, the CEO, had an idea for a character, and we brought that in, and that shaped one of our conflicts in this kind of vampire-dominated part of the Dramar. And so everybody being able to take part of it, you get kind of everybody's great ideas, and then the best ones elevate kind of naturally and then become the substance of the book itself and of the world itself.
And it's just a complete book. It's just like, how, like, for example, Dungeons and Dragons has a player's handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, and Monster Manual. It's just one book. Do you need special dice for it?
It is one book. You can play with one book. You don't need special dice, but you can have special dice. So because it's D6, and that was really important when Justin and I were talking about designing the system. We want somebody to go raid their Monopoly or go raid their other games if they don't have the dice. Now we are talking about TTRPGers, so they probably have enough six-siders, but you could just take a handful of six-sided dice and play immediately. And that was also important to us, is that we wanted a situation where you can do a pickup game. In a lot of TTRPGs, you can't do a pickup game. You have to have a session 0 in which you establish all of these characters and you build all of the story, or the GM has to spend a number of days and weeks kind of crafting this story. And while we would still encourage that, we also have a situation specifically with the book that has a starter story that just lets you play the game. You grab some dice, you play the game. Even if you don't want to use the characters that are included with it, we timed creating a character and you can do it under 30 minutes. So, and that was the really nice thing. Like, your whole table can be ready to play this game in about 20 to 30 minutes, which means that you can be sitting around saying, "Oh, that plan that we had to go do, the escape room," I don't know, whatever it was, "it's suddenly raining and nobody wants to leave." Okay, we can just play in Our Brilliant Ruin story and have it be very one-shot friendly in that way.
And part of the reason we wanted to use six-siders too is, yes, we know that gamers always have a ton of dice on hand, but we're planning to make the PDF completely free. So if anybody ever wants the game ever, they can just download it for free. And so for people who aren't traditional gamers who don't necessarily have a ton of dice on hand, they're the ones who can go raid their Monopoly sets, or they're the ones who probably have some six-sided dice in the house. So even if you haven't ever played TTRPGs before, you don't have a bunch of these weird polyhedrons in your house, download the PDF for free, grab a handful of dice. In 20 minutes, you're ready to go.
Well, or dice rollers on the internet,
Sure. Yep.
So, sorry, I just want to be clear. You said the PDF is free. You mean like
the whole book will be free? Yes. Your face. Yes, exactly. I had the same thought originally.
Oh, okay. Okay. So,
the question is, why are we doing a Kickstarter?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yes. The reason we are doing a Kickstarter is because we want to be able to put the book in print. And so the Kickstarter is really about bringing it into a standard bound book, fancy version of the book, and also trying to accomplish some other goals for ourselves that go beyond just printing a PDF and handing it out to folks.
And if I may ask, where in production is the PDF, in the sense of maybe production is not the right word, more like in the, like, is the book completed already, or?
All of the writing is done. It's edited. It's been proofed in editing. It is currently in layout. And so once we get a layout done and completed, that will go off to the printers. And then we will proof that as well to make sure there are, I'm not going to say no errors, but as few errors in that as possible. As someone who's made books before, something always creeps through.
And remember, it's free, so don't get mad at the typos.
But then the backers also will get access to the PDF first, and then eventually it becomes free to everyone. So that's one of the other parts of the Kickstarter is, making sure that all those people who helped us turn it into reality get taken care of first.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Does the Kickstarter offer any other extras, stretch goals, things like that?
Oh yeah, a whole bunch of them. Justin, do you want to go through some?
Yeah, we're trying to front load as much of the kind of content stuff as possible because we can cram this into the book. And so one of the ways we are doing that is we have we already reached one of our stretch goals where we are including a kind of gazetteer of the Dramar. So we've chosen a couple of different places across the Dramar, and we're showing, what's going on in them, who are the movers and shakers. These are the kind of maps you can look at and see the points of interest in them. So that's already made its stretch goal. Another stretch goal we have is the legends and kind of gossip of the Dramar, and we're putting this in the format of a periodical or a gossip magazine. This will be a separate PDF, and maybe eventually we'll be able to print that. But basically, it gives some additional context to the world. These 5 aristocratic families, where did they come from, right? These true folk guilds that kind of dominate the true folk society. Where did they come from? What do they hold important? Who are the people who are examples of these kind of catch as catch can unbonded? What sorts of groups operate in there? What personalities exemplify those? And so the more of this type of stuff we can do that helps players understand the world, then we can push back to the end of the stretch goals other formats for that. So if we hit a certain threshold, we will print this. The periodical is called The Whisper. The gossip magazine is called The Whisper. So the important part is to share the information, and then eventually maybe we might be able to turn that into print and put that into the backer, to send it out to Kickstarter backers as well.
Okay. And when does this Kickstarter end?
I think we have 17-ish days from right now. So the end of the month, end of March, it concludes.
All right, viewers. I will do my best to get this out before
Yeah, I
time
think
runs out.
March 27th is the exact day. So before March 27th.
All right, excellent. This sounds fantastic. Is there anything else about this I haven't asked you about that you wanted to share?
Again, I've wanted to do this for literally a decade. I've wanted to make something like this. So being able to do it now really is a dream come true. And so I'm just really excited. I think you can kind of get from my demeanor how excited I am about being able to put this out and share it with people. So yeah, my love for it is something that's, I'm really riding high on. It combines a bunch of my interests, again, that sociological storytelling and gameplay, the world itself drawing on those Edwardian aesthetics that I love. The antagonists, the monsters, have a very kind of gothic sense to them. The stories of a doomed world has a very kind of gothic arrangement to it. And like Rachel said earlier too, I love the human stories. We've moved the camera. We're not, I wouldn't ever describe us as Lovecraftian, not because that's necessarily bad or anything, but the Lovecraft perspective is that the universe is giant and doesn't care, and is ultimately nihilistic. But for us, the camera is on the other end, and what does it mean to these people? These people know their life is ending, so how are they going to spend their precious few last hours?
One last question before we wrap up. If you were in this world, our brilliant ruin, who would you be?
For me, as much as I love the comfort, I think my heart belongs to the true folk. The union of rivet and bellows is really where I think I would end up. I'm a worker. I like to do work. I like to make things. Those are some of the most emphatic workers in the world. And so, both their attitudes and the things they do, I'm among those.
Yeah, so I feel sort of similarly. I feel like as far as what I wish I would choose would be unbonded. I wish I was one of those people that was going to be out there fighting the good fight, being scrappy, and clever in how they're going to make it in the world. But really, I just would probably want to be a cushy aristocrat. So, and I'm so embarrassed to admit this too, because, you know, nobody wants to say, yeah, I would just totally just, you know,
Sell out.
yeah, you know, but in reality, I'm like Justin, like, you know, Justin and I were talking about this. You know, one of the things that we were talking about was just, is this an idea that's going to be successful? Is this an idea that people are really going to enjoy? Is it going to take off? Is it going to become its own thing? Is it going to, you know, have a nice little flame out? I don't know what you're to call it, but we were talking about how we always have more ideas. Not only do we have more ideas for our brilliant room, but we also have multiple ideas for story worlds. So when the idea is like, are you ever going to retire from this? No, we are not. We're going to be doing this until we die. So there is I think, a true folk ethic in the both of us. But I do think we both fantasize about being aristocrats sometimes.
Well, thank you both for taking the time to talk to us about our brilliant ruin. And to our viewers, I'll put links in the description below. Check out the Kickstarter while you can. And if it's too late, you can still check out the PDF. So viewers, take care, be safe. I'll see you next time.